Great. Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Andy Long, and I'm with Sarah McGuire here. Today, we are going to talk about how to protect your wine through cyber for IPs and cybersecurity risk. So, can you go to the next slide, please? So here's our agenda today. About MGO, about our objectives of protecting IT strategies, and why cybersecurity matter in the wine industry, and common cybersecurity threats, what we can do to help finding the vulnerabilities through IT assessments, what are the key components of the stronger cybersecurity, and last but not the least, identifying and mitigating risk and the best practice for the industry. And then we're going to save some time for the questioning, and hopefully we have enough time for questions. Next, please. So this is how this is about MGO. MGO is a global financial service professionals. We have a full scope firm. So we not only do tax accounting, we also do a lot of advisory service through from technology all the way to business. So for me, I have been within the IT industry for more than 20 years. I've been doing system networking and cybersecurity for the last 20 years, and been serving a lot of different clients in the industries, in various industries, and have seen a lot of different scenarios to help and to help with improving audit process and cybersecurity postures.
On my end, I'm Sarah McGuire. I focus on the consulting side of the business. I'm not the IT expert like Andy. My focus is on accounting and advisory. And some of the things we'll talk about today is internal controls related to wineries, and what are some basics that can be implemented to protect yourself on the cash and accounting side.
Great. One of the main objectives of this webinar is understanding the cybersecurity risk. A lot of you here are from all from the wine industry, and there are a lot of unique cybersecurity challenges you may be facing today in terms of operationals, industrial systems, and business activities. There are a lot of for example, there are a lot of IoT of things for your small agricultural risk that you may have to deal with, in terms of automation in your vineyards, industrial control system that control your winemaking process, your supply chain and distribution. Those are the very typical challenges that you see for on the daily basis. It doesn't seem to be appealing to you all the time, but the risk is definitely exists, and it doesn't stop until you mitigate the risk or continue to reduce the risk. So can you go to number 2, please? Yep. So the main thing to do is to help to make sure that you identifying and mitigating the risk as soon as possible. The reason why, I give you one example. For your industrial system, let's say, can you imagine if your winemaking process was to automate like fermentation, bottling, temperature control, the system was vulnerable, and somebody come in to change the settings of your system, and as a result, your production was being your production or your quality of your wine is being altered, tempered, and it will end up having a long-term effect on how your branding was established and your quality control was become an issue, or you have a supply chain issues that where your recipe or your trademark was being taken or being used by unauthorized third party, and that might cause a long-term effect on your distributions and your branding as well. Next, please. So a practical cybersecurity measures will help you to best practice will help you to best practice on strategy how to safeguard your digital assets. This includes through a series of assessments, a series of mitigations, and that helps you to sit on a better security posture to better defend yourself from all these potentials from happening. Next. So if you want, if we have time, we can go on to a real case example study tool for the cybersecurity that we have seen so far. I'm happy to share the experience as well. Next slide, please. So why cybersecurity matters in the industry? So as I mentioned before, you have a lot of different challenge. Ever since you start digitalization, everything I can imagine, everything is mostly controlled by the computer, whether your automations in the vineyard, temperature system, your soil sensors, your winemaking process, automation, fermentation, bottling, supply chain, and even your customer data. Point of sale system, your e-commerce, when you sell wines to the customers, your point of sale system also could become an issue if it is vulnerable, and moreover, your CRM system, your customer relationship management system tool could be another big potential for exposing personal customer data as well. So and there are a lot of different attacks that can be launched to you, like ransomware that cause data breach and causing a lot of financial damage. I mean, just for a fun fact, I mean, I won't say fun fact, just for a fact that if you are experiencing any data breaches, there will be a lot. There could not only be a business interruptions, but there will also be a very lengthy process to reporting the breaches and a settlement process to follow. It typically, the process don't stop until like 6 to 12 months or even 18 months later in order to settle the one incident. So that could be a very, very lengthy process. It could be it could cause a lot of headache to the business owners.
Andy, tell us about a situation that you've seen ransomware. I'm sure you've got a lot of horror stories, but maybe an example of what a situation you've seen and then how long it takes to recover.
So thank you, Sarah. Yeah, I've seen one ransomware incident where it is a retail business. So they were hit by ransomware, and the business were basically halt for 2 weeks because basically every single piece of data on the server was being encrypted, and there's no way that any staff will be able to work on anything for until the server comes back online. Obviously, the ransomware guys, the bad guys, the threat actor that we call, is not good, is starting the negotiation. The negotiation since day one, the negotiation starting, and we didn't reach to a deal until a week or so later. During that time, no one can work, and everybody was just sitting in the office, waiting for news, and that is one painful time. And even if you get get an agreement to unlock your server, it's going to take about another 10 days to redo all your servers, because you're not going to be just unlocking the data, but also you have to redo the entire system, because you know that the system is already vulnerable. So it altogether, it takes about plus or minus a month in order to at least get your business back up and running. And after that, there's a legal process started in between, and that takes about 8 months before we start sending the first settlement to the first customer. And I think it is about the 18 months or so, then we close the case. So that is a very lengthy process. The attorney fees, the damage was astronomical, because basically there's you have to rebuild all the customer trust. You have to rebuild your branding. You have to you may, if you miss all the shipment, you have to make sure that you compensate your customers. So there's a lot to follow. So it is I mean, you could see a cybersecurity could be a small investment to your business, but it's like buying insurance in order to protect you from bigger potential risks that you may be facing.
That's really helpful. And if you do get hacked, who should your first with ransomware, a very bad situation, who should your first call be to? You know, someone like yourself, Andy, an attorney. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I think if you do get hit by, unfortunately, you get hit by ransomware or other attack, I think first, if you do have a established IT vendor, you should definitely call them. But it also depends if they have the industry knowledge of how to handle incident management. So definitely MGO is very experienced with dealing with incident management. You can definitely call me, call Sarah in order to help you. But I would definitely encourage that you check out with your IT vendor to see if they have the incident management experience in order to handle all these surprises.
And in the case of the retailer that you mentioned, what did they do since they couldn't access their system? Did they go to the old-fashioned way, pen and paper, when they had customers coming in, pay with cash, or were they just, out of luck?
They try to go pay paper and cash for a day, and after that they just decide to close down the store, unfortunately, because it was just too much trouble. Yeah, they try to keep the cash, the sales record, but then they just too many people, too many hands. They couldn't able to get the numbers straight, and at the end of the day, they just decided to close the door, hoping that they were hopeful that to have the business back and running in 72 hours. But unfortunately, at that situation, you never have the control. So it also depends on negotiations, depends on how things goes with the threat actor. So it becomes a very daunting process if they don't cooperate.
So the moral of the story is make sure, like you said, you've got that insurance, you've got something protecting you, and then have a plan for if you do have an incident.
Yep. Yes, you always need to have plan B. next slide, if we can go to the next slide. So as Sarah mentioned, the cost of cyber incident could be astronomical. It causes a lot of reputational damage, and there are a lot of revenue loss. And the worst part of these cybersecurity incident is personal data breaches. So personal data breaches could be could be very expensive. At this, you could imagine at this point, personal identification information (PII) is basically name plus any information. So, for example, your name plus your address classified as PII, your name plus your phone number classified as PII, or even your name plus your email address also classified as PII. So basically anything that could identify you as a person is already identified PII. Then if you have a breach of such information, then you are obligated to send notification to your customers about the breach. And that is why it caused a lot of reputational damage, because it tells the customer that your company was not able to defend yourself from cyber attack, and therefore they losing their information to unauthorized third party. So if you go to the next slide, please.
And the one thing, Andy, tell us about that term that you mentioned. Is it PII?
Yes, PII.
And what does that stand for?
Personal identification information.
Okay, so some good lingo for the cybersecurity world. That's what you don't want to, you certainly don't want that information out in the open.
Yes, we don't want that information to be open. It is also have in the state of New York, there are New York Shield Act, and there are New York General Business Law Section 899-AA that make sure that business are compliant to the cybersecurity notification. If you have a breach, you are required to disclose and to notify your customer that their data was exposed to unauthorized third party, and that is why to maintain and that is the law to maintain the compliance of the business. And talking about business continuity, we mentioned that during the attack, your business could be halt to a full stop, and you also need a plan to make sure that in case such incident happen, how do you continue your business without having to shut to a full shut? Just because it could be time consuming, and no one wants to be watching the clock on an 8-hour basis or 10-hour basis in the office just to wait for something to start running again. So additionally, having a business continuity plan is very important to make sure your business is uninterrupted in any situations.
So if you do have a situation where you've got to inform, like you said, all your customers. So let's say you have a vineyard or you're a distributor, and there is some sort of a breach and you have to follow the rules that Andy mentioned for the state of New York. Do companies usually hire someone to handle that process, or is it done internally? If that happens, how do companies think about that?
So if that happens, usually there will be attorneys involved. So there are breach attorneys around the country that can help, that will work with us or your IT vendor to help prepare the notification, making sure help you to review what data was being exposed and to prepare a settlement. So a typical settlement would be a credit monitoring offering by the credit unions. I mean, not credit unions, credit agent bureau like Experian, or in order to it as a settlement package. So that's usually happen. I'm sure everyone would see a lot of those in mail for the last 2 years. A bank, a retail store, or some business that you dealt with before have cybersecurity incidents, and they will offer you credit monitoring protection for some period of time, just as a settlement package. Sometimes it involves money, but that will be based on individual cases.
Andy, a question that just came in is, can you talk a little bit about what kind of financial burden this could cause? Like obviously there's, if you have to do a settlement, but do you have to pay the folks that are doing the ransomware? Like, can you just talk a little bit about all the different types of fees that are involved if you end up having a cybersecurity attack?
Yes, definitely. So the fees typically involve, like, for example, I take ransomware as an example, right? So usually what happened to ransomware is there's a threat actor came into your system, and he locks you out completely and deleted all your backups. So at that point, they hold you hostage so that you have to pay them in order to restore your system, because you don't have any other copies of the backup anywhere that you can find in the network, right? So at that point, you'll be asked to pay a ransom, which could be usually in today's world, usually pay in digital money, Bitcoin, or some other forms of digital currency. So it could be, $10,000, it could be millions of dollars, depends on how he evaluate your data. And then you also you may also incur a cost to pay your IT vendor to restore your system during off hour. You may also incur a cost to your breach attorneys. Attorney fees are not cheap, as you know. So it could easily, from experience, even a smaller retail store, one cyber incident could cost anywhere from $250,000 to up to $1.5 million easily. It really depends on what kind of data that they got on hand, and how much work involved in the restoration process. And this fee does not include your after incident infrastructure improvements, because a lot of times if you have an infrastructure that already have a breach, then you probably have to redesign the entire system afterwards, after you bring it back to operational as a remediation process. So that could be another add-on cost to your incident. Okay. If we don't have any questions, we can move on to the next slide.
Oh, sorry, I was talking. I had a good one. So, Andy, who are these people that are, hacking into these companies and basically holding them hostage? Is it mostly from abroad? Is it in the United States? And then my second thought is there a way that that you don't have to pay the ransom, or is it really become the common practice that you have to do that negotiation?
Well, good question. So those people are usually outside of US. So because in US we have a lot of we have a lot of different agencies protecting us, so it's very easy. It's easier to trace down the bad guys. However, bad guys bad guys do live everywhere too, outside US. So the attack usually coming outside of US, and they are usually they don't usually do attack during business hour. It's always during the off hours, holiday seasons. Just try to make sure that you feel that it is the most inconvenient time for you, and cause you the most disruption. For example, holiday season, less people paying attention to work, and that's the best time to come into your system and give you some hard time, right? Sorry, Sarah, I forgot your second question.
And then are there ways, tell us about how these, negotiations occur. Have you had clients or seen situations where you can outsmart the attackers, and not have to pay that ransom? Or in your experience, you see some sort of settlement happening?
Yes, I do. I do advise my customers a lot of times that you don't make one backup. So you always have a backup inside your in your network, but you also have a backup. We call it immutable backup elsewhere, somewhere in the cloud, so that you in case of anything happen, that immutable backup was never tampered. So you could always restore data from that cloud service, in order to avoid paying the ransom. However, that doesn't mean that you don't have to deal with the breach notification, because if you do have ransom or other cybersecurity event happen, you will have to that means that your system was being accessed unauthorized, and your data was unauthorized accessed. You still bounded to report the incident. It's just that it saves you from the negotiation process to a threat actor, and you still have to go through the system restoration process or breach notification part of it. It definitely helped to shorten the downtime.
That's helpful. Should we move to the next slide?
Yep. So there are common cybersecurity threats facing not just the winery industry, but also across all the business. So phishing was always the number one cybersecurity threat, because most of the attacks start from phishing. Phishing is usually from email that you receive from some random people. They mimic your vendor, they mimic your bank, they mimic your service provider in order to get you to click on something, in order to start the penetration to your system. So a lot of times that you will have a spam filter turn on, but that help filter some of the email. However, the bad guys are getting smarter and smarter. There were a lot of times that phishing email or look so real, to the point where I personally have to take a look at it, staring at the email for at least a minute or two in order to tell if this is even true. Sometimes there will be not just a link to click. Sometimes there will be a some information that you have to a form that you type in order they collect your information that way as well. One of the craziest phishing email that I got is I have received a power of attorney from someone through that was sent to my wife, and happens to be my wife was sitting next to me, and she was asking how come I sending a power of attorney to her, and I was that absolutely surprised, and I said, I have never sent you that. Please make sure you delete the email. Don't click on anything. Yeah, just it is that crazy. You know, it could cause a lot of different damages to you. And let's say if you are getting phished, and the next thing usually happen will be they get into your system, and that's where the ransomware may happen. So because when they get into your system, then they start looking around inside your system to see, and they start launching different triggers into your system, and then they wait for a good day that is completely off guard, and they will launch the ransomware to encrypt your system, and therefore to halt your entire business down to a full stop, and therefore they ask for money. In between that, while they're looking through your system, they start looking into your customer data to determine whether what kind of ransom money to ask for. If they see a lot of valuable data, then obviously the cost will be higher. But you know, at any cases, anytime you have data breaches, that will be a very costly process to go through the case before you can close the case. So that becomes a very very long process to handle. Any questions on that?
Oh, I was just going to say, it's a big mess. Try to protect yourself.
Yeah,
And I think, and I think we're going to get into some of those shortly here.
Yep. Yeah, it is. If you can move on to the next slide. So how familiar is your team with the common cybersecurity threats? That's a general questions.
Maybe everyone's more familiar now after talking about those things.
Yeah, I think we can move on to the next one while we're waiting for the answers. So IT assessments. So why IT assessments are essential? Because it helps you to identify your strength and weakness to your IT system, and it helps you to mitigate risk through identifying vulnerabilities, your outdated software or misconfigurations that could be exploited by the cyber threats, and also ensure compliance. So make sure that you adhere to the strict regulations of the data security assessment, help you compliance with laws like GDPR for Europe. If you do business with California, you need to comply with the CPRA, California Privacy Law, or if or at minimum the New York Shield Act or General Business Law. And last but not the least, it also helps you to optimize IT costs. So one of the examples that I have would be like we have recently dealt with a client that is a retail store, and they for the duration of 20 years of business, they never had one cybersecurity assessment done until recently. So surprisingly, that we when we conducting the IT assessment, so we surprisingly to find out that they are that they happen the entire organization have never been changing their password for the last 7 years. So it was always all the staff was thinking that, oh, my coworker will be changing the password, and as a result, none of them has been changing the password for 7 years ever since the last system updated, and that becomes a very alarming process. And when we review it, the password complexity, a lot of passwords were like very simple passwords, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, with a question mark at the end, or password with uppercase, lowercase, 1, 2, 3 at the end. Those are the common password that we also found in the system. So meaning that they are pretty much vulnerable. And at the point that we were making a assumption that they don't even know that they have been breached in the past. So there's a lot of questions coming after the assessments, and that is very typical finding as well. The reason why is because a lot of times when the system was being configured at the first time, it usually, we just want to test the functionality, and once it's working properly, and most people forgot to tie down the systems, and as a result, the system could be running for a year, 2 years, or multiple years without anyone notice that, it was never tied down. Some other examples that we have seen is, someone been using your Wi-Fi and without you even notice. And there were one crazy time that we have seen that the neighbor store was using the Wi-Fi, and for some reason your security system is also on the same network. So your neighbor has been watching your surveillance camera for years, and without you even notice. And and some of the camera was actually pointing to the internal office, and they am looking at your safe. So they even know your combination to open a safe. And isn't that crazy?
That's totally crazy.
Yeah.
So you're saying you shouldn't set up your password to be password. It should be something complex. And maybe even, do you typically recommend, Andy, something like LastPass or other apps that help you use use complex passwords?
Yes, I mean, I would definitely recommend like some password management service like LastPass. They help you to store your credentials securely, and also they offer a lot of tools out there. They offer password generations tool, so that you can generate a password that is complex enough for anyone to remember. So that way, at least you have a better defense for yourself in terms of those applications. These days, unfortunately, we are dealing with so many usernames, so many passwords. It's very hard to remember all. So I personally use password management service like LastPass to help manage all these different accounts, just to make sure that I can set a very long password in case someone is trying to brute force my credentials. And also, two-factor authentication is the industry norm. I know that it could be troublesome because every time you have to have your phone or you have to have your physical token. If not, you have to check on a different email address for the code. But this is very key thing that you will have to you should a minimum thing that you should do in order to protect your different accounts or your credentials.
That's the same on the financial accounting side or cash management side. Your bank accounts and your passwords there. Try to use complex passwords. Make sure only certain people have access. Also on the banking side, there's something called positive pay that you may all be familiar with. It's just another check to make sure that you're not getting scammed via checks. I've seen check fraud a lot with clients. Wire fraud is also common. I had a situation with a client where the hackers, like Andy mentioned, it's during the holidays or when people aren't paying attention to work. In this situation, there was email going back and forth that my client was going to be out at a doctor's appointment. So the hackers knew that he was going to be on his phone checking things, and they were purchasing a big piece of real estate that day. The funds were going out. So sure enough, they got the email, the place to wire the funds, and it looked real. Turns out it was not real, and they were out $1 million. They got the FBI involved, tried to get the money back, but it's very hard. Sometimes the cash is just gone. So something simple like passwords, making you've got multiple people approving can go a long way.
Yep. Yeah. A lot of times the money out the door, at best, you might be, if you're lucky, you get maybe 5-10% back. Yeah. Which the minute it's gone is really gone. It's almost impossible to trace back. So yeah. And just add on one more example. If you one day, if you happen to see a pop-up from your cell phone for two-factor, let's say a bank sends you a confirmation code via your text message, you may be very alerted to start changing your password for your banks, meaning that somebody may have already get through your user and password, and therefore trigger the phone the SMS authentication. So there are numerous of incident that I have seen that some clients' phone were popped up with a sign-in message, and without paying attention, they do you authorize to sign in? They tap on their phone too quick, say yes, and immediately their account is being accessed. And ever since you lose that control, you're never going to get it back until the account is empty. So it's very essential. Make sure if you get any message pop up from the phone, make sure no matter how busy you are, read it through first, making sure before you tap on any buttons. Because the minute you press yes, then you lose control. Shall we move on to the next slide? Yep. So IT assessment, the core benefits, as mentioned, enhance your security posture, compliance trust, and business continuity. So, for IT assessments, we usually not only looking at your security posture, we also looking at the compliance, see how compliant you are with the local regulations. Every state has a different privacy law at this time, so it varies from depends on where you are. And the other big piece that we look at is business continuity. So we always ask the customer, if this server your main production server goes down, does it mean that you need to close down for the business? If you do, that means that you need to have a better security. You need to have a better continuity plan. Just because that you cannot assume that your server runs 24/7, and even if you do, you cannot guarantee that no one is going to interrupt it and cause any outage. So so we always want to make sure that our customer not just breathing up the security posture, but also have a plan B for the business continuity, just to make sure that they can always be operational at any given time. Can you move on the next slide, please? So IT assessment for the real example is really safeguard your data. We look at where you save your data and how you save your data and how often that you review your data. And we also looking into how to protect you from the operations against interruptions, and also to make sure that it is you have a long-term digital resilience. Just because you save a lot of PII data, and you have the responsibility to make sure you protect them with a reasonable security measure. That is the responsibility from all the business, not just you, not just MGO, but for all the business owners that operates in the US. That is the basic understanding for it, and also that long-term, in terms of long-term digital resilience, that you will have to make sure that you have that you are putting in a system that is reliant too. So it needs to have a continuous support, or it needs to continue to be surfaced with different patches. Software never comes perfect. They always have different vulnerabilities. So you always need to maintain those regularly in order to make sure it is safe. Can you move on to the next slide, please? So here are the key components of the IT assessments. So we look at risk assessment. If you have a policy review, if you have any policies established, we look at access control, see who have access to your sensitive data. We look at network security, see if you have any security holes in your network, who can get in, how to get in. We look at your data protection strategy, if you have any. And then we look at your incident response readiness. So if you already have an established vendor that is capable to handle it, or if you have any contingency plan in terms of incident, who to contact internally. And last but not the least is your vendor, your third-party risk assessment. Why looking at the vendor? Because your vendor also have a lot of your data as well. Sometimes your vendor have is connected to your internal system. So we also look through your third-party vendor to make sure that your third-party vendor is also doing their job to safeguard their system in order to provide you a better security posture. So a lot of times that breaches do happen from a third party as well. It's not uncommon. So even though you did the best job, you hired the best IT firm to service your network, doesn't mean that you're 100% safe. You also have to make sure that your third party that you're dealing with on daily basis are also up to the standard as well. So this is why we're looking into a third party. Any questions so far?
These are really helpful. What do you, if you had to pick, I mean, all of these are very important, but is there one thing for our wineries, whatever part part of the vertical we're at, like, is there something, Andy, that you view as the number one most important thing? So if you had to do one thing, what would it be?
I would. I'm actually pretty greedy. I'm actually pick two. So I
Okay.
would. I'm I'm actually picking data protection and backup, and also the incident response. So reason why is because I hate to negotiate with threat actors. I don't like to negotiate. I would love to tell them that, hey, you know what, you do not. I don't want to pay you any money because I have data, backup data elsewhere myself, and therefore I would look into data protection and backup strategy first, and then incident response. So if you do have such an incident, so you need to make sure that not only you, but also your team knows exactly what to do in order to respond to such incident. So we usually do a tabletop exercise on a yearly basis within the internal response team, just to make sure that they know what to do under different scenarios. Every year, I have to be very creative to come up with different scenarios, whether it's a natural disaster, whether it's a ransomware, or I think this year we are doing disgruntled employees too. So I have to be very creative on every year to come up with different scenarios for the team to practice how to respond to an incident. So that will be my choice.
That makes a lot of sense. And I know we're coming up to time here. I think we have a few more slides, but Jen, are there any questions coming in?
None right at the moment.
Okay.
Okay, perfect. So we're going to the next one. So I think the question is how frequently your winery conduct IT assessments. So I think that will be the today's question for everyone. So if you haven't done one, you probably should consider doing one very soon, because it is like buying your insurance, and we always hope that nothing will happen to the business, but at the same time, just in case, it's better safe than sorry. At least you understand where your current situation is. At least you have a chance to improve. So here, just to reiterate, here is how our methodology to mitigate IT risk. So we start with assessment, and then we prioritize based on the findings, the risk impact, and then we develop a plan to implement and for mitigation, and then after that we start monitoring regularly. So those are the typical steps that we follow to in order to bring a complete picture to a customer. How do we strategize and to improve the current situation.
Andy, on that step 4, monitor and review regularly. Let's say a small retail shop or say a family-run vineyard. How often do you think that, in your experience, are those reviews? Is it once a year, once every few years? What's your take?
I would say anywhere from yearly to 12 to 24 months. Depends on how it really depends on what are the changes in between. I mean, if there has been no changes in the system or processes, then I think it could stretch up to 24 months. I mean, if there are changes in system, let's say, for example, we change a new point of sale system, we have changed a new CRM system, then I think it will need to be sooner than 24 months. It really depends how many changes within the period. Ideally, it should be done every year, but family-owned business or small business, they don't always have changes. So I think to be fair, 24 months should be good enough if there are not significant changes.
That's really helpful. So I think we're down to just a couple minutes left here. I've got a couple comments, and then Andy, maybe you've got some final comments as well. Just keep in mind to protect yourself. So especially on your systems, password, everything. So if you have a accounting system like QuickBooks, make sure that you're password protecting. Same with your bank accounts, anything that has money, safes. Some of you all may have physical cash transactions that need to be kept secure. It saves a lot of headaches going through what Andy mentioned with all the different ransomware attacks. Is just a complete headache. So a small investment in the grand scheme of things to get some insurance for yourself. And then one other note, if you've got employees that you terminate or they move on, always remember to take them off bank accounts. You never know what can happen. What are your final thoughts, Andy?
I think that is exactly what I have, what I'm thinking. Everyone hates to pay insurance, but insurance to me is actually very important and necessary, just because that it's going to cost you even more if bad things happen. I have to be honest myself, have I ever got breached? Even I work in the industry. Yes, I have my bad days too. There were days that I wasn't careful enough in the earlier days. So some of my accounts were being exposed, and I went through the paying myself as well. So and after that learn smarter and do better.
Now one question that came in.
Yes.
How do you start a risk assessment? And then the other question is, where do you get the insurance?
So how do we start the assessment? So usually a professional service firm like MGO can help you to do the assessments. So we work with your IT service provider to conduct the IT assessment. So they will be providing us the system information, the access information. So we run through our internal metrics to measure and give a scorecard among all these areas. And there are generally about 60 to 80 items that we look through to begin with, and then we will review the results with the business owner and the IT service provider to provide them the details of our findings, and then based on the priority, then we recommend a mitigation plan. In terms of the insurance, there are cybersecurity insurance that you could buy from various insurance company. It really depends on what kind of coverage that you want. You may want to look into what type of incident that they cover. Do they cover some policy says they only cover a small portion of ransomware attack. Some cover the full amount of the policy value. So it really depends on how your policy is written. So you may want to pay attention to those details as well when you purchase the cyber insurance.